everybody? Welcome back to a brand new special episode, special edition of the WTS podcast, joined by a very special guest, my good buddy, Coach O, Oliver Jean Charles. Oliver, what's going on, man?
Mr. Wetz, always a pleasure, man. Always a pleasure.
Thank you for joining me. Post game analysis. We just finished watching Game 4 of the Miami Heat Milwaukee Bucks series. Fresh off, man. Just finished about 10 minutes ago, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
A lot's been going on, man. Do we take it from the start? Do we take it from the start? We take it from the top?
I mean, we can.
We can.
We can.
All right. So let's just speed past through. So overall, it's been very interesting seeing players compete in the bubble. You're talking about a different environment. You're talking about, that the human aspect playing in it, where players are wondering, if their families are being okay, and it brings up such a different element. And then you're talking about like the whole, the movement that was going on before these guys went in, and then we had another one with Jacob Blake. Like a lot of stuff is going on with these athletes. And
right.
First off, credit to them. Credit to the NBA trying to accommodate the athletes as much as possible. Credit to the athletes for pushing through this, because
for sure.
I mean, if there's one thing we learned this year is like, we love sports, but it's, the stuff going on out there, it's more than sports. So it's been a lot. It's been like a lot of stuff in and out. But with me, it's just, if we're talking about the basketball aspect, seeing the players compete, first off, I have to say that it's very different. So my first thought going into the bubble, the first thing that I thought was, okay, well, this is going to be like a huge pickup game, or we're taking it back to AAU days. That's the first thing that I thought about it. It was interesting because I said, like, okay, you take out, there's so many aspects. You're talking about the crowd, you're talking about the spacing, you're talking about like all these little things, right? And well, it adds up to what these NBA players are used to seeing. So when at the first few games, I was not shocked to see like the lower teams, like the Phoenix going 8-0. I was not shocked to see that happen because you're talking about not having like the crowd aspect of everything. You're talking about not having the crowd putting pressure on the refs to make a call. There's a lot of stuff that was going on. But overall, I think it was definitely interesting to see the development of everything. And now building on to the playoffs, where lower seeded teams are not afraid to go at these big teams. And now we're seeing all these quote unquote upsets, super early in the playoffs. So, I mean, yeah, overall, it's been fun. It's been different.
Yeah. For me, like, I know, like, when we watched the Western Conference, I can't say, there were any upsets. Like, the Western Conference is pretty well balanced. I know Richie and we did a podcast where, even like, a lot of people, like, when they executed a trade for CP3, OKC, when Westbrook went to Houston, and you're looking at the roster, and what is it, SPI, I think, gave him less than a 1% chance of making the playoffs. And I'm looking at that roster with Gallo, Steven Adams, Chris Paul, Shai, even though, I have my beef with Shai through in this playoffs, but yeah, look at it, I was like, this team is good. This team is solid. And but you look at the East, Ben Simmons goes down, that happens. I think the Celtics were locked to win the series either way, maybe not, in the fashion that they did, but I think that it was a lock. But now, fast forward to this series that a lot of people expected to happen, in the playoffs, that it was going to be a matchup, and the Heat were actually one of my sleeper picks to win the NBA championship because Jimmy Butler's my guy, man. Ex Chicago Bulls player
from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
I can vouch for that.
ex Bulls player, man. And that roster is just really, really good. Duncan Robinson in his second year, Tyler Hero, like, the 3-point shooting that they have. I'm not too surprised. I really like my early pick to win the NBA championship again this year was the Milwaukee Bucks. But even going into the playoffs, especially coming into the bubble, how they played, I think they ended the bubble 5-3, if I'm not mistaken. I think their record then during the for the 8 games, I think they were 5-3, if I'm not mistaken. They were shoddy. They weren't playing really well, but they were missing Eric Bledsoe. They were missing Pat Connaughton for a little bit, so they were probably out of sync, maybe because of the 4-month layoff. So I was holding out hopes because of that. Then they play Orlando. Orlando beats them pretty convincingly game one. They bounced back to win 4 games straight and ended that series. And now we're looking at this matchup, and I don't know for you, but for me, it's just exposing the fact that Giannis's supporting cast isn't really that great. Like they're downright bad. If like Bledsoe woke up this game, like he had 28 points and 23 points in 2 games, if I'm not mistaken. He definitely put the team on his back this game, and they really needed it. And all I could think of is like, where was this? The other 3 games. So let me know your thoughts about your early thoughts.
So when Giannis went down in this game, they were getting Chris Middleton was getting more touches. Difference between Chris Middleton and Giannis is Chris Middleton obviously has that 3-point shooting, right? So having him on the ISO, to a certain extent, it kind of opens up the game a little bit more. Whereas when you're looking at Giannis, if I'm playing Giannis at the top of the key, I'm probably going to gap off, make him shoot that, to not let him get to the paint, to get those kick out threes. And I think Miami's doing a super great job at just containing the Giannis penetration, because you're looking at how many threes Milwaukee made during the regular season. A lot of those threes were highly dependent on Giannis getting to the paint.
For sure.
Getting to the paint, getting fouled, going to the free throw line, getting to the paint, getting layups, or getting to the paint and drive, kick, open threes. And then, you get into scramble after that, is drive and kick after that, right? Because that's how they want to play. We know this. We know how the NBA goes. When it gets to the playoffs, you notice like some of the games, the referees are letting the players play more. Like there's not the same calls. You're not getting the same calls. And you hear a lot of commentators say that, where they say like the game kind of slows down a little bit in the playoffs.
Right.
Meaning that the game slows down, meaning that there might not be as many easy possessions, quote unquote. Like you're not going to get like as many fouls. You're not going to get as many free throws. So what's happening now is they're playing Giannis the same way that they were playing the same thing. And you saw that's the first thing that Orlando did. And now what every team is doing is they're taking what the first team did and then they're just carrying over. It's carrying over.
Right.
So Orlando played Giannis a certain way that worked. As soon as Giannis grabs the rebound, these guys, they're not even trying to stop ball. They're turning and sprinting. They're protecting the paint. So now Miami's doing the exact same thing. So by containing Giannis, what that's doing is we're limiting when Giannis not getting any layups. Giannis not getting to the paint. He's not involving his teammates as much, right? He can't drive and kick. It's not the same thing. And they're getting a lot of contested shots. But man, credit to Miami. It's crazy how they, we're gonna say his name a lot, but Jimmy got a lot of criticism for going to Miami. He got a lot of criticism for going to Miami. And it seems like the whole team just embraced his personality. And I don't know if you could see it, but it's almost like they all like transform and they all absorbed his character and they all like play with that same grit and intensity. And it's working out.
Yeah, and you also have a guy next to you in like Jay Crowder. You have veterans on the team like Udonis Haslem. It's still Pat Riley. It's a great organization, man. Like, fantastic job. But, as much as I want to give credit to Miami, I have to criticize the Bucks because, like, I might be mistaken in my, in when I say this, but the defensive scheme that every team is employing to guard Giannis, and like now, if you didn't watch the game, to inform you, Giannis retweaked his ankle again. He was out for the second half of this game. We don't know if he's going he's going to come back in the series, especially playing a game every other day. In my opinion, he's not. I don't think it's worth taking the risk if he's still limping, because that's twice on the same ankle. I don't know if I would risk my, franchise player. Like, we all know what happened to Grant Hill, like even Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy, they spoke about it on air. We've seen that happen with superstars in the past, so I don't know if you risk it. But 3 years ago, when the Boston Celtics beat the Milwaukee Bucks, it's kind of like the same thing that they employed to kind of stop Giannis. It's the wall up top. Today, Giannis came and put the team on his back early, started performing well, and he was still finding ways to kick out and find the open man, but these guys were just not connecting on their shots. And I was just looking at the game frustrated. I'm like, man, this is bad, man. Like, where's Bledsoe? Bledsoe seems like he's become like one of the most low IQ players in the league, just taking isolation threes when that's not really his game. Like, you're being guarded by a player like Goran Dragic, where you can take advantage by, driving. Like, you have the physical advantage on him. And Middleton gets more touches when Giannis is out of the game, but I don't feel like they were playing optimally, like if that makes any sense. Like, so my criticism now goes to, and this is where I want to gear the discussion, is like towards the coaching staff. Like, what is Mike Budenholzer doing? Like, the first 3 games throughout the year, you've been playing Giannis about 31 minutes a game. You're still keeping the same regimen going into the playoffs when we know rotations shorten in the playoffs. Yep. Like, it's usually an 8, maybe 9-man rotation. Mm-hmm. I applaud him for, keeping maybe 10 guys playing. But come playoff time, especially knowing that your half-court sets suck, like, they're just, their half-court offense isn't that good. You should be telling Giannis, Chris Middleton, like, even though they did play that amount of minutes today because they had no other choice. Giannis wasn't in the game in the second half. Giannis should have been playing more minutes early on in this series. Let me know if you think differently. Like, let me know what your thoughts are on this, and what Budenholzer is doing in the series. If he could have done anything differently, for that matter.
There was a big debate about this. They were saying, like, oh, Giannis should have played a little bit more, should have played more minutes and stuff. And to a certain extent, I agree. I mean, if I'm the Milwaukee Bucks, like, I'm going down swinging with Giannis. Like, that's the bottom line. It gets a little bit hard, I guess, when it's just like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like there was no real consistency in how they were using Giannis. Sometimes they use him as a screener. Sometimes he's isolating top of the key. Sometimes, and I feel like that lack.
I would agree.
I feel like that lack of comfort, to a certain extent, kind of plays into the psyche of the other players, where you don't really know where to pick your spots a little bit.
Okay.
To a certain point. Like, that's where I'm at. I'm gonna be devil's advocate here. I'm gonna take it from the other player's perspective. Who's getting the shots. Where the shots are. What how your superstar plays. Who's taking the shots. Who's gonna have the ball in their hands at which point of the game. This. You're a professional. Now, when it comes to picking your spots, like, I feel like sometimes it was just a little bit hard for me to be able to pick those, to see patterns. And as a player playing on that team, it would be hard for me to know, be consistent and develop something well. Because I feel like Milwaukee's been blowing out everybody, like, all season long. So rotation, we're going deep and stuff like that. But the players that are playing now, they didn't get enough meaningful minutes playing in meaningful role. And I think, like, now it's just showing to a certain point.
Okay. So, in your opinion, like, is that a fair criticism for Budenholzer? Like, like, for me, like, they won this game. Like, I really wanted them to win one game. It's just like I think the series is over regardless, but it's just tough seeing like the back-to-back MVP of the league just get swept. Like
Yeah,
that's just a
yeah,
tough pill to swallow. Uh,
I agree.
Again, I'll say this: the game wasn't very easy to watch. Like it stretches at a time, like it's just poor execution from the Milwaukee Bucks. Eventually, they pulled it out. Thankfully, like I'm glad that they were able to win a game out of the series. But I think this is over. But yeah, so that's like I don't know if you would just put it on Bud or if it's just a GM and the construction of the team. Like, what do you think about the personnel, like, surrounding Giannis Antetokounmpo? Like, Chris Middleton, Eric Bledsoe, Brooke Lopez. What do you think of those guys?
Yeah. Piggybacking on what you had said, um, there's no consistency. There's not anybody that I can rely on per se. The first person you're gonna think about is Chris Middleton, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for Mark Jackson to be like, this is the Chris Middleton we need at this point of the series right now means that there was a lack of consistency somewhere. It means that either Middleton wasn't getting his touches or he wasn't taking his shots, or I don't like that's where I feel it's a little bit hard because if I'm supposed to rely on Chris Middleton, and I remember when we one of the first podcasts we had talked about the star gap in between the players of each team.
Mm-hmm.
So the star gap is basically the gap between Giannis and Chris Middleton is so huge that I can't really rely on Chris Middleton day in, day out. You get what I mean?
Right.
Whereas if you're looking at other teams, right? Let's say you're looking at you're playing against Miami. You know Miami's gonna rely on the team concept. You know Miami's gonna rely on this. No.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take a team like the Houston Rockets, like no matter how bad we play, we know at some point Harden's gonna be consistent in something. West was gonna be consistent in something. I think there's no reliable Robin to the Batman.
On the Milwaukee Bucks side, you mean?
Yeah, on the Milwaukee Bucks side.
Yeah, because
it's just hard to see, man. Because that team, I'm just looking at that team. I'm thinking, okay, if we take Giannis out and we put somebody else, this is how my mind thinks. Like I go through this. I think about, okay, look at everybody there, and I'm like, if I take Giannis out and I put someone else, like how would everybody else fit? It's hard to say, man, because it's a quote unquote deep team because they've been playing with like 10, 11 all season. But when it comes to production and consistency, it's not there, right? It's not.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For me, and I think other pundits have probably said this, but they're missing a reliable playmaker. But then you're looking at the roster, you say, okay, you have Eric Bledsoe. Myself, I was confused when they extended Bledsoe mid-year, I think 2 years ago, when Brogdon's contract was coming up as well. And I'm like, why re-sign him at this point when you still have the opportunity to, to shop during free agency? I thought it was premature to extend him during that period and give them a look throughout free agency because Malcolm Brogdon was a really good he was a really good player, and he's a more consistent 3-point threat, and basketball IQ wise, you could see the man is sharp. He's a really good point guard, and I feel like Giannis is missing that elite playmaker on his team. Shout outs to Jason Kidd. When Jason Kidd came in to be the coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, he tried to put the ball in Giannis's hands and help develop him into becoming a playmaker. But Giannis's handles aren't tight enough, a Kevin Durant. His skill set isn't there yet. So I'm not putting everything on Giannis because he did develop somewhat a little bit more from what I saw last postseason, because now, he's able to pull up off the dribble from three, even though it's still not consistent. You could still give him that shot. You take it any day of the week instead of him driving to the paint. And we've seen his free throw percentages in the series so far. I think he shot 21 for 38. if I'm not mistaken, so far in the series. But in my opinion, they're missing an elite point guard. So I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts about that? Like,
Yeah.
do you think Bledsoe could do more for the team?
So the Bledsoe situation is interesting
Mm-hmm.
because when you look at Eric Bledsoe, his best years was when he was allowed to be a scoring point guard. Like
Right,
that's who he is.
paired with Goran Dragic.
Dragic.
Yeah,
You heard
or
that, right?
Chris Paul. Yeah.
Exactly. He was a scoring point guard. So it's 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 hard to change midway. And I would even look at this. Maybe Bledsoe, like if you think about it this way, maybe Bledsoe could be someone that could come off the bench for them.
Yeah, because I like George Hill. Like, I really like him. I
George
think you keep.
George Hill's a general. He's been doing that since Indiana in the Miami series. We all know George Hill from those Miami days. We all know the George Hill. He can floor general for sure. But it's just a little bit hard because I feel like if those two would switch, I feel like there'd be a little more, a little more kick to it.
Yeah,
But
he's more consistent with his 3-point shot. Yeah, like, and again, these are things that I don't know if Bud has been successful in this league, right? He took the Atlanta Hawks, back-to-back 61 team, I think. Unfortunately for him, he ran into the boogeyman that is LeBron James, that everybody in the Eastern Conference had to face. Nobody could beat this, right? So now you go into a rebuild. You leave the team. Now you go to the Milwaukee Bucks, where you inherit like a generational star and Giannis Antetokounmpo. They build this team. John Horst. Again, I don't think the roster is that great. Now that I'm looking at how the Miami Heat are just dissecting them, but again, it's just team ball and the fact that they're such a good 3-point shooting team. Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. Especially Bam Adebayo, just a great passer, and he could handle the ball as well. Now you have a ton of space to operate with, and with those driving kicks, pick and roll, and you could do all sorts of things with that offense.
Uh-huh.
But I'm thinking it's like, there are certain adjustments that Budenholzer could have done for that team to put them in a better position to succeed in the series, and he's just not doing it. So everybody thinks that Giannis is going to leave. He has 1 year left. If they lose, and in the manner that they lose this series, I don't know if he leaves. Like the way, emotionally, he may want to run it back again because I feel like he'll be so disappointed, especially if he doesn't play. Like, that's just, my tinfoil hat on conspiracy theory. Like, I think, he'll just, say, nah, I'm loyal. Especially the Milwaukee Bucks really took a chance on him because I don't know if if you've seen his brother play in high school or, his younger brother. I think he has a better skill set than Giannis, but he doesn't have that opportunity, But the Milwaukee Bucks drafted him at 15. They built around him. They gave him opportunity, groomed him, and they invested in him. So I don't know if he just picks up his bags and leave. I don't know if he's that type of player. But at the end of the day, he repaid them. He's played tooth and nail for them. He's paid his dues. Like, if he wants to leave, he can leave. But I just don't know if Giannis is going to.
It's gonna be interesting for agency. Like, for real, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. Even though it's gonna be tough because we don't know what's going to happen. I discussed it with Richie. Adam Silver has said that he wants fans to be back in the arenas. So they're not making as much revenue if they can't. If the arenas aren't open. So they want fans to come back. But with the whole pandemic, we don't know when that's going to happen. So it's going to be like a restructuring happening, I'm pretty sure, with the collective bargaining agreement between the players and the NBA. So that's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, but it's an interesting point you're saying about them investing, and I feel like, you know, I feel because I read a lot of stuff about Giannis, and obviously I don't know him personally, but he gives me the impression that he's not there. It's not about the money per se. Like I feel like he's a loyal guy. I really feel like he's a loyal guy. So I would not be surprised to see him. And also, with the way that the bargaining agreements are set up, I don't think anybody's able to offer him the same kind of money as Milwaukee.
Sure. Yep.
Right. So
I think that's what they'll bet their hats on.
And I don't. And yeah, it's like, man, like it's gonna be a show, man. It's gonna be a show. I don't know how it's. Are they going to think, okay, we lost, yes, but this was not a real? Because by the way, some players might actually think that this was not a real season. Some players might actually think like that, right? Even though as competitors, they might be like, oh well, if we had our home court advantage, maybe this would have been different. We don't know that. So I think with Giannis is going to be super interesting to just see. Like, as of right now, Miami is up 3-1. And right now it's up to Bud to really decide how it's going to be. Like, Game 5 is going to be huge. Even though no team has come back from 3-0.
3-0.
Yep. That's the coffin of playoff teams.
They've come back to tie the series, but they still ended up losing.
So I think it's up to him to just like your supporting cast has to step up.
For sure, it's next man up mentality. But I think knowing, especially if Giannis is out of the series, like now you're left with Chris Middleton, Eric Bledsoe, and Brook Lopez hit some timely shots today. I'm just not a fan. Like maybe if it's like Kristaps. If it's Kristaps, if it's Anthony Davis, if it's like Karl Anthony Towns, like those type of guys, like when they're operating outside the paint area, for sure, man. Brook Lopez taking those kick out threes, man, in the corner or the wings, I hate it. I can't stand looking at it, man. It's just so tough to watch. It's like, what are you doing? Like you're 7'2". Like what are you doing, man? What else? Yeah, so like knowing that there's this looming thought that Giannis might leave, and looking at the roster surrounding him, what do you think would be the best fit for him? Like, because I like a team like Dallas for him. Obviously, everybody talks about Golden State. What do you think he really needs, man? Like, yeah, let me know what you think.
Well, before this series, I would have definitely told you that someone like Giannis would have been perfect in like a team like Miami, right?
Right.
But now I can't really see him going to the team if they dismantle them or they keep spending everything, right? But a team like that, like you need, like shooting is so key, especially for a player like that. And you know that with Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero, you're gonna get consistent threes like every game. Like these guys, you see these guys shoot. Like I'm surprised when it doesn't go in.
Yeah, and like Tyler brought the game, brought the big. What a rookie! What a rookie!
Start on Tyler Hero. I love Tyler Hero. Don't get me started on Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson. Like I don't know what it is about those two, but I really, really like how they play. And Miami, the way that Spo is orchestrating everything, they set so many flare screens, so many away from the ball staggers. Like someone like Giannis in a team like that. Like imagine Giannis who had the ball instead of Jimmy Butler on the wing, right? So you got to worry about the double stagger going the other way. Giannis has the ball by himself on the opposite wing. The whole lane is open.
And you got Bam as well that could run the floor now. Like everybody's basically a ball handler. Like
Bam's doing everything now.
Yeah, like you're playing Bam as a center, but Giannis could be your 5 really. Like it's just I know a friend like he's like salivating at the thought that Giannis is gonna come to his team, but we're all telling him it's like, yo, dude, if you're whooping his ass this way, man, there's no way that he joins you. I
Yeah.
don't know if he's gonna tap in with KD and be like, yo, what type of backlash you got after
Yeah.
after you join Golden State, but
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see, man. And final thoughts. If I think with this win, maybe Bud keeps his position as coach. I don't know if you jump the gun and fire him, though. If it were for me, because I'm an emotional person, like like the minute it went down 3-0, I'm just like I'm recruiting coaches already. I'm on the line. It's like, yo,
Mhm.
listen, man,
Mhm.
Bud ain't gonna be my coach next year. Like, what are you doing? Um, I don't know if you really paid attention to the NBA as much, like, over the season, but who, like, I know, well, Tibbs is coaching the Knicks now, but I think there are guys like, I don't think Mark Jackson will ever coach in the league anymore. I think he's blackballed, but there's still like a guy like Kenny Atkinson that's out there. I don't know. Like, for you, who do you think would be a better fit, like, coaching wise, for Giannis? Like, I don't know if you have
Mhm.
any thoughts about
If the team stays the same, I really like David Fitz though.
that. Okay.
I like Fitz. I like
Why?
Fitz a lot. Um, I think the culture and just where you're looking at his journey, you're looking at being stuff that he learned from being in a championship environment with Miami. You're
Mm-hmm.
looking at him going to Memphis and being that and having like that grind culture. Him being able to convince guy like Zebo to come off the bench in Memphis, right? Just Fitz has an understanding of what players need. And even though his the New York the New York experiment wasn't the
Right.
best, I still think Fitz is someone that can definitely help your culture. And I think he has that perfect like mix of working with young guys, of working with seasoned veterans and helping them understand their role, and also being in a championship environment. So I think off the top of my head, I'm thinking Fitz. I'm thinking Fitz if I had to choose. But I like
Okay.
that you said Kenny. I like that you said Kenny. I'm a
Honestly,
big fan of Kenny.
I'm hoping
Big
Kenny
fan.
Atkinson becomes the Bulls head coach. Honestly, and I know there's this lack of black NBA head coaches right now in the league, but like, the guy's just good.
Yep.
He's just good. Like, it's just there's the proof is in the pudding. Like, you see what he did with Brooklyn. Like, he's just good, man. Like, so like, I just really hope that he's up to coaching, and I'm like, I hope our front office is actually smart for once, and they actually give him like a 3-year deal or something like that to see what they could do. Because if
Mhm.
not, I think Zach LaVine is gone, and I don't know what we're gonna do afterwards. Because that's just like three superstars in like a row. Like, unfortunately Derrick Rose got injured, but Jimmy's gone now, and we finally got Zach LaVine, but like, he doesn't want to be in Chicago
Mhm.
anymore. So
Mhm.
um last thought for you, like, well, not last thought, but last question for you. What do you think about the Steve Nash hire? I know that's that's way off the topic, but like, I really want to hear
Yeah.
your thoughts about that.
Um, it came to me as a shock, right?
Right.
Like I wasn't really expecting it. I kind of thought that, you're looking at a team that next year they're going to get KD back. They're gonna get a healthy KD. They're gonna get a healthy Kyrie. I was not expecting that. I'm still trying to process it right
Process it,
now.
right?
Because obviously, yeah, because obviously, as a guard, as a player, like Steve Nash was able to command all this attention to me and stuff. But like he was the general manager for Team Canada, so he has an understanding of how it is to build a team. But I don't know when it comes to actual coaching, and this
The
reminds
X's and O's.
that reminds me a lot of the Jason Kidd hire. Ironically, it was hired by the Brooklyn Nets. And
Right.
I'm still trying to process the whole Steve Nash thing. I don't want to badmouth because there's a reason why people make their hire and everything, but it did come as a shock. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I wasn't expecting that.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody in in the sports world was expecting that, man. Um, okay. Do you think the series is over?
I think we're waiting on word from Giannis, but
You,
I think this series is it's.
you
I
think they
think
got
in,
one more game in them?
I'm gonna be nice. I'm gonna say Miami in 6. I'm gonna say Miami in 6.
Oh man, I said once this game was when Jimmy Butler was walking off the floor, I said Jimmy Butler's going to their hotel rooms and packing their bags for them because he's ending this next game, and
Oh man,
he's not playing around, son.
Jimmy's
Um,
Jimmy's a dog. Jimmy's a
yeah,
dog.
for sure. And good luck to your team too, man. Toronto came back. I was surprised by that. Um,
Save off
yeah,
one shot. How the tide has changed? Off of one shot.
right.
That OG shot would literally save like the whole season.
For
It's gonna
sure.
be fun.
For sure. Like you were just seconds away, point 0.5 seconds away from going
One by
down
zero
0-3.
for going home. Now let me
Oh man.
now let me fire you this question.
Yeah.
Let me fire you this one.
Go
Get
ahead.
you off the spot. Out of this is coming out of left field. Messi? What?
Look, I know this is on the basketball topic, right? But
Sorry about that.
no worries. When the reports came out that okay, Messi is like he wants to leave Barcelona, he doesn't show up for training. My first text to Rich was, I'll believe it when I see it. I don't know if it was to Rich or to one of my friends named Alex, but once they sent me that report, I was like, I'll believe it when I see it. And Richie and I, we've been discussing over the last couple of days about this, especially after, Messi had his interview and his sit down. The whole back and forth with Bartomeu saying that, a team has to pay his $700 million release clause fee to release him when he only has 1 year left on his deal. I just started thinking, okay, Messi really had no intention of leaving Barcelona. He's 33 years old. I think, out of everybody, he'd probably go back to Pep, in the Premier League.
City.
But
Yeah.
my conspiracy theory about this whole situation is Messi, especially after the interview, was Messi just wanted to put more public pressure on Bartomeu and this board and this organization that it is rotten. It's no good anymore. It hasn't been good for the past 2.5, 3 years now. There is no plan in place. He wants to make sure that the public gets rid of him when it comes to election time. And there's a new team that comes in, and maybe at that point, next year he extends his deal for another 2, and afterwards he comes to America, or he goes and retires in Argentina. That's just a conspiracy theory. I have nothing to base that on, but for me, I think Messi should have left when he was 30 or 31. It's not the fact, I don't want to compare the situations, but Cristiano Ronaldo has, he experienced every level, I would say.
Major League. Yeah, the Major Leagues. Yep.
So he was in Portugal. He was groomed in England, and then he went to Spain. Messi, once they took him out of Argentina, he was in the Barcelona academy, and that's all he's known. If he really wanted to leave for a new challenge, I think he would have done it 3 years ago, 2 years ago at best, especially after Neymar left and, everything was going downhill. I think that was the opportunity to leave, especially when his deal was always running up. And he always took his time to renew his contract because he just didn't like the situation. So I'm like, if you don't like the situation, how can you improve it, or how can you get away from it? And it's just like what? I won't extend my deal, at the end of this, I'll just walk out of here. Because I just don't understand why you keep a guy, especially your club captain, that everybody knows that he wants to leave. He doesn't want to be a part of the club anymore. You keep him around for another year when you're just losing, and he could potentially walk away for free. So That's just my thoughts about it. I think Messi really loves Barcelona, and I don't really think he wants to leave. Like, that's just my thoughts about it.
No, it's crazy. It's like you see so many similarities in the different sports, right? So you're looking at the hire. We were just talking about the hire of a basketball coach. Um, at the end of the day, the stars, like the fans watch because of the stars, right? So stars are going to be more. You like coaches are expendable.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like, coaches, because we're not watching for the coaches, as crazy as it sounds. And it was just interesting. That's why I wanted your point of view on it, because I was like, when he said that, and when I saw that it hinted, and obviously I wasn't educated enough on the subject, but that really hinted that there was something going on in the culture, which meant that he wanted to leave.
Yeah,
so that
sure.
had to do with like either the management or the coaching. It had nothing to do with like players or whatever, or his situation. Like I'm sure if he wanted to, he would have retired like in Barca.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Because the coaching decisions that they made, even though like after Luis Garcia, even though the previous coach before Quique Setien, they fired him when he was still leading. Like they fired him when just because they weren't playing attractive football. They were winning ugly. But they fired him when he was still number one, and they wanted Xavi, but Xavi, as a smart, sane person, it's like, why would I just come like mid-season to a club in disarray right now? So like there was just too much turmoil and chaos and no plan in place, and I can understand how frustrating that is. But to me, I really never thought that he would leave. Like I never really thought about it, because if he wanted to, he would have just left like 3 years ago. Because
the whole world was shocked, man. I'm telling you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So who you think's winning? Yeah.
What for the NBA?
Yeah. Who you think's winning?
Man, it's tough, man. It's tough. I'm still gonna go with the Clippers.
Finals Clippers versus Miami. You think it's Clippers Miami?
I think so, man. Like, I want to give Miami the edge because of just, it's just like they're just in tuned right now. Like they're just they're in the zone right now.
The zone, yeah.
They're just in a zone, and I like Boston. I like Brad Stevens most of the time. I didn't like him when he went zone in that last possession when he was 0.5 seconds away from going up 0-3 in the series.
Mm-hmm.
Like most of the time, I like Brad Stevens, but the fact that a lot of times Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are very inconsistent, it's tough. But I still think they're gonna pull out the series. No disrespect. No disrespect. Our Toronto Raptors. I still think they're gonna pull out because Kemba Walker didn't. He only had 9 shots attempted the last game. When I saw that box score, I was like, what? So I think they'll still pull out. If the Toronto pulls out this after that series as well, I'm not shocked because they're one of my sleeper picks as well to have won the championship. But I think the Clippers will still pull it out. Yes. What about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you're gonna think I'm crazy. I think the Lakers are coming out of this Houston series for sure.
Okay.
And you know what? I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna say it. We're getting Lakers Denver in the Western Conference Finals.
You think? Oh, that's just. Hey, man, look. Jamal Murray has come alive. You know what's funny? For two guys that I was really calling frauds because I was getting real annoyed with them, those two guys, Chris Middleton and Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray showed up, man. He showed up this playoffs. I'm really happy that he's playing his best basketball right now. I think they need it. I would agree with you if Will Barton was still there on the team for them, but I don't know if they I think Doc Rivers is just too good of a coach.
He got the juice, yeah.
Malone is good too. Malone is an excellent coach, but I just don't know if Denver will have enough down the stretch to beat them over 7 games. But if it happens, man, I'm here for it. I'd love to see I'd love to see Joker in the series. Like, yo, it's the unpredictable series, man. It's the unpredictable bubbles, man. Like,
Yeah.
it is what it is. Like, I'm here for it.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. But I'm thinking ultimately we're looking at. I want to say Miami. But oh, this is tough. This is way tougher with the way Milwaukee, like
The NBA where amazing happens.
Yeah. I'm gonna go Lakers. Do I think? Gosh,
Lakers Boston, 80s
Lakers,
throwback.
Lakers Boston would make sense, but there's something about Boston, like you said. Now it's just about, do I think Miami is that much better than the Raptors?
Mm-hmm.
That's something else, because I think Raptors is going to beat Boston.
Okay.
And I think we might be looking at. This is tough, man.
Yeah, it is, man. It is.
Literally, the only consistent thing that I've said in that is LeBron. Literally. So
LeBron's making the finals.
So you know what? Since I really like how Miami's playing, let me go Lakers Miami in the finals.
Okay. Well, there you have it. Thank you guys for tuning in, man. Thank you, Oliver, for joining me. Like very impromptu, last second special edition, man. It was fun.
Always a pleasure, my guy. Always a pleasure.
All right, now we're probably gonna get ready for this game 2 between Houston and LA. You think LA ties this one up?
LA rebounding margin plus 30.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in as always, man. Peace.